5 o'clock on the dot this Thursday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Hundreds of sealed court filings pertaining to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein are now public record. Here's Aaron Katersky on a former president's name in the first round of the documents released.
We know that former President Bill Clinton has been publicly associated with Epstein before. We knew that the lawyers wanted to depose Clinton as part of a lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's former paramour. But now we know the reason, because in these documents it says Clinton's a key person who can provide information about his close relationship with the defendant, Maxwell, and with Jeffrey Epstein. We never knew why Clinton's deposition was sought. Now we do.
There are names that have come up like the actress Cameron Diaz, Al Gore, Tipper Gore, a reference to Donald Trump. But experts say anyone who's listed in those documents has not been charged with anything. Southern border security update. Tennessee Congressman Mark Green among the 60-plus Republican lawmakers who went to Texas yesterday to see the illegal immigration crisis firsthand. Green telling WTN's The Drive with Brian Wilson, President Biden refuses to do what is necessary for national security.
All he's got to do if he wants to decrease the backlog is stop letting people in, and it'll start going down.
Green will chair the first impeachment hearing of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate is working on a border compromise bill, and both the top Democrat and Republican dismissed House Speaker Mike Johnson's claim that the House version is the only option. And right now in Tennessee, people are in shock after seeing a car crash into a home in Pulaski.
I heard a car coming down through here real fast. I guess it was doing 80, 90 miles an hour. I came out and I heard a thump. When I heard the thump, I looked up. The car was upside down on the roof of the car. And the pole was cut half in two.
Neighbors telling Channel 4 they saw 3 people taken away by helicopter. Market Numbers report. Market Numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Online at beaconcm.com. Here's Daria Albinger.
Stocks tumbled for a second straight day despite some encouraging news from the Fed. The Dow fell 285 points. The Nasdaq dropped 174. The S&P gave up 38. We're getting a look at the minutes from the Federal Reserve's last meeting of 2023. The Fed's Open Markets Committee agreed that inflationary pressures are easing and the job market is cooling off, so they left a key interest rate unchanged for the third time in a row. They also signaled that they could make up to 3 rate cuts this year, but they emphasized that inflation is still a ways from the 2% target rate, so they must proceed carefully. Employers posted 8.8 million job openings in November. That was down slightly from October and the fewest since March of 2021. But demand for workers is still strong by historical standards. The number of people who are quitting jobs, a sign of confidence in the labor market, hit a low that we haven't seen since early 2021.
Checking futures ahead of this morning's opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures up 38, S&P up 3, Nasdaq up 21. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
We talk news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
506, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. It is Thursday, January 4th, 2024. And apparently Bill Clinton likes him young. That's what the big takeaway, the big headline from the Epstein names. The files have come out now, and we were all wondering yesterday, where are these names? Where's all of the files and all of the names of the powerful men? And so they finally dropped, I guess it was last night. I don't know if it was yesterday afternoon, if Brian had it, or if they finally dropped overnight, last evening, whatever. But the big headline, everywhere you go, and I'm looking at Fox News and, some of the other organizations, and the big takeaway is Bill Clinton is the key person to the Epstein probe, and the big quote regarding Bill Clinton is that he likes his girls young. He's not accused of doing anything wrong. And one of the things I thought was interesting yesterday is I was going through all of the very, very rich and powerful Democrats that, have not necessarily been accused of anything wrongdoing per se. Maybe you could say that it was guilt by association. I'm trying to be very careful. And I'm trying to be fair. Because just because you were associated with Jeffrey Epstein, and just because, you may have taken some rides on his plane or took some meetings, doesn't mean that you were sleeping with underage girls. And there was a couple of people on the super text line that actually said, well, we didn't think that Mandis would be out there defending Democrats. I'm not defending anybody. I'm trying to be fair. Because I'm not about to accuse somebody of anything like sleeping with underage girls just because there is a guilt by association. I will tell you that Bill Clinton, they say, is a key person to the Epstein probe because of that close relationship with both Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And the Clinton liked them young. I can't do it nearly as good as Johnny B. Maybe Johnny B will give us his Bill Clinton impersonation during the Gang of Three Amigos. Now, again, Virginia Roberts does not say that Bill Clinton did anything wrong. Ghislaine Maxwell paints a very different story. By the way, Al Gore and Tipper Gore also listed amongst those Epstein associates, and again, not accused of doing anything wrong. Except with Al Gore, except being incredibly wrong about the environment, and no, he did not invent the internet. Moving on from there. The brother of Jeffrey Epstein said that he had dirt. This came out yesterday. The brother of Jeffrey Epstein said that he did have dirt on both candidates running for president in 2016. So that is, of course, both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And one of the things that Epstein said is that if I told people what I know about these two, they would have to cancel the election. But again, this is all hearsay. And Donald Trump was, listed 4 times in these documents. But again, nobody is saying that Trump did anything wrong. From the Daily Mail, neither Clinton nor Trump were accused of having sex with any of Epstein's victims. Virginia Roberts, though, claims that she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew. Alan Dershowitz, by the way. You want some uncomfortable reading, read about Alan Dershowitz. I've got audio from him because he is saying that he was misidentified. They say the pedophile financier made at least 17 visits to the White House, presidential logs show, and Bill Clinton also flew on Epstein's private jet, making trips to Europe, Asia, and Africa in 2002 and 2003. They say there is no evidence, and I read this in like 3 or 4 different websites, there is no evidence that Clinton ever visited Epstein's Caribbean island, Little St. James. No, I don't know if Bill Clinton, partook in anything, and neither do you. There's all kinds of stuff that is out there. Ghislaine Maxwell, again, paints a different picture, but you do have some of the women, some of the girls at the time, now women, who say that Clinton didn't really do anything wrong. And as I said yesterday, here's the thing. These women have not been shy about relating their experiences, let's just say. So if Clinton did do something wrong, if Bill Clinton did do something wrong, then it wouldn't surprise me if they had something to say about it. But, Ghislaine Maxwell says, well, she's intimating that Clinton did do things that were wrong. Well, then what exactly is it? And let's face it, Ghislaine Maxwell is probably pissed off because she's in jail. Other names included in all of this would be Stephen Hawking, David Copperfield, the magician, and yes, Alan Dershowitz as well. Again, Dershowitz is specifically named as someone who had sexual relations with the girls. He also continued his legal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein as well, even after Dershowitz found out about his proclivities. And that's part of the conversation this morning regarding Alan Dershowitz is he is, yes, again, accused of having sexual relations with these underage girls. Then, once he supposedly found out about all of this stuff, this is what Dershowitz says. He says he was misidentified. He says that once he found out about Jeffrey Epstein and his proclivities, that he ended a personal relationship with him, yet he continued to represent him legally. The documents also say the girls were forced to have sex with Alan Dershowitz, the former Harvard law professor. They also claim that he witnessed others doing the same thing and that he took part in the legal process, helping himself and others get immunity from federal prosecution. So Dershowitz was on with Sean Hannity last night, and he defended himself.
Well, first of all, the woman who accused me has now stated categorically that she may have misidentified me, confused me with someone else. And these documents, if all the documents are revealed, will prove categorically that she did misidentify me, that I never met her, never heard of her, never spoke to her. And I can prove it by independent means. I have all my travel records. I have all my television appearances. I can prove that I couldn't possibly have been anywhere near any of the people who were involved in this. I was Epstein's lawyer. Of course I flew on his plane.
So there you go. That's part of what Dershowitz is saying, as he does contend that he was misidentified, and also his reasoning for continuing to represent Epstein. So believe what you want. He does say again that he ended that personal relationship, but the legal relationship did continue. Here's part of that.
Well, as soon as Epstein was shown to be what he was, I ended my personal association with him completely, but I maintained a legal relationship with him. I represented some of the worst people in the world and continue to do so. That's my life. And of course I represented him.
So there you go. So now we have the names, we have the accusations. A guy named, by the way, there's a new name here that was named billionaire hedge fund manager Glenn Dubin was named by Ghislaine Maxwell, and the accusation is that he did have sex with the underage girls. And if you don't know who Jeffrey Dubin is, I should say Glenn Dubin, he is a billionaire hedge fund manager, and he's one of those folks that is given to a long list of Democrats, including Chuck Schumer, Hillary Clinton twice, and a whole lot more. So another Democrat, Glenn Dubin, on the Jeffrey Epstein list, and he is, again, accused of actually having sex with these girls. And, again, here we are, another big-time Democrat donor on this very seedy list. It is 5:15. Time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Thank you very much. Partly sunny today, a high of 41. Tomorrow, dry and a high of 46. Saturday, rain and a high of 44. Sunday, it should be clear and a high of 44. And right now, Johnny, you said it was what degrees?
34.
34 degrees at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So one of the things, I might as well just get right to the whole Trump thing because that's what everybody wants to know. And I did mention this in the beginning of the previous monologue about the situation with the names regarding Jeffrey Epstein. Who did who did what, who's accused of, just simply guilt by association. And a lot of the people on the left are saying, aha, Donald Trump was on his plane 4 times or whatever it was, or there was meetings 4 times. And so this is from Vanity Fair. Might as well go to the epicenter of Trump derangement syndrome, which would be Vanity Fair. This is all that they could come up with regarding Donald Trump. Trump has previously spoken of his affection for Epstein, telling New York in 2002, I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. According to the New York Times, a decade prior, Trump directed Florida businessman George Hornaday to organize a calendar girl competition at Mar-a-Lago. And after 28 female contestants were secured, revealed that the other guests were just he and Epstein. So Trump tells this George Hornaday to organize a calendar girl competition. The only 2 people that are there are Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, according to the New York Times. Video footage from that same year shows the 2 men partying together at the Palm Beach Resort with cheerleaders for the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. They say the friendly relationship continued for more than 10 years, and after that, with the 2 men reportedly dining at Epstein's mansion and attending many of the same dinner parties, according to Epstein's brother, Mark. Trump would comp Epstein's mother and aunt at one of his Atlantic City casino hotels and flew on Epstein's private jet numerous times. You know what? Here's the deal. Anybody catching anything illicit here? All right, so, there was a little soiree with a whole bunch of beautiful women. I'm not hearing any kind of, any kind of things that were illegal. I'm not hearing of anything where Donald Trump is accused of having sex with underage girls. And again, I went right to the heart, the epicenter of Trump derangement syndrome, and that is Vanity Fair. And they're not saying that Donald Trump they're not even intimating that Trump had any kind of relationship with an underage girl. And as far as, Trump saying that he's known Jeff for 15 years, he's a terrific guy. Well, I'd be willing to get that most people have had relationships with people and said good things about those people. And then there was a falling out. More details become available. Disagreements happen. And then those relationships end. But those quotes live on forever. Big deal.
Well, it's kind of like the actress that called Harvey Weinstein God.
Yes.
In an acceptance speech, Meryl Streep.
That's exactly right. There were a lot of actresses that said very good things about Harvey Weinstein. And then more details become available. Listen, how many people have told their exes that they love them and said wonderful thing about their exes and then, you end up breaking up, right? I mean, so I'm not going to fault Donald Trump for saying nice things about Jeffrey Epstein when he didn't know the full scope of his creepidity. Is that a word, Johnny? Creepidity? Can we make it a word? It is now? Okay, good. Later, they had a talking about Trump and Epstein. Apparently, one person who observed both men telling the Washington Post they were tight and that they were each other's wingmen. What does that mean? A wingman? Like if 2 men are single, which, by the way, at the time, both of these guys were single. Trump and Epstein, I believe, were single. I'm not sure what wingmen means, except that they kind of help each other out and getting women. Is that what it is? All right. Later, they reportedly had a falling out over a real estate deal. In 2019, Trump told reporters from the Oval Office they had not spoken to Epstein in about 15 years, adding, I am not a fan of his, that I can tell you. But again, and I will say it for the last time, still not seeing anything illegal or illicit regarding Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, just a couple of single rich guys hanging out, chasing girls. far as I know, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with a guy in his 40s or 50s, going after younger women. It is what it is. And by the way, a lot of younger men, what do they call it? Cougar chasing, right? Younger men going after older women. It's something that just happens in society. Now, Alan Dershowitz and Epstein and some of these other folks who are actually named in having sexual relations with these women. Now the big question is, underage women, now the big question is, what happens to an Alan Dershowitz or, some of these other, billionaire hedge fund manager Glenn Dubin, who was accused in the paperwork here of having sex with some of these underage girls. What happens to them now? Do legal proceedings, are they now going to be charged with, having sex with minors or whatever it might be? I don't know what happens after this. 522 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones, actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies. It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right here. We look forward to talking with you.
You know how here in Tennessee we're not supposed to drive while distracted these days? It is clear that I'm broadcasting while distracted because people are reacting to my monologue. So 0164 says that airplane, the Lolita Express, had one purpose, Mandis, and it was to take willing participants to an island to have sex with underage girls, and one of the perks where you also get to have sex with young girls at 33,000 feet. They're all guilty, and yes, by association with such scumbags. I don't know. I mean, if you didn't know, I guess maybe, you know what? Maybe here's what I want to know from you folks on the super text line at 615-737-9986. Bill Clinton is not nearly as clean as Donald Trump. Bill Clinton, you had Ghislaine Maxwell, who does intimate that Bill Clinton did do some untoward things there on the island, and that, you know, Bill Clinton likes him young. That's one of the big headlines out today. But the girls in question say, no, the former president did not do anything wrong. But there's a shade of, you know, Bill Clinton may have done something wrong, either on the Lolita Express or on the island. Who really knows? But nowhere does it say that Donald Trump did anything wrong. But the bottom line is there's a lot of Michael Jackson, the singer, I guess, is because there's a talk show host that used to be named Michael Jackson. I think he's dead now. I'm not sure. But anyway, so there's a lot of names out there, Alan Tipper Gore, that are listed in these documents. So, but not all of them. I would suspect that, you know, a large majority of them did not do anything wrong with these younger girls. Now, if you were an associate of Epstein, well, does his stink, you know, get on you as well? Because you may or may not have known. If you didn't know that he was into these kinds of proclivities, then is it fair, even if it's a Democrat, to say guilty by association? I'll let people know I'll let folks listening know what you said on the super text line at 615-737-9986. And a question for Ken Weaver coming up during the Gang of Three Amigos about something that happened when I was gone.
Well, I wasn't on any planes to any Caribbean island or anything like that.
You sure about that, Ken?
I'm
just kidding.
I'm very sure. I've got pictures.
I'm just kidding. 5:31, Ken Weaver with the news is next.
Full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes, but right now, previously sealed court documents pertaining to financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein are public domain, revealing the names of powerful people who associated with Epstein. ABC legal contributor Kim Whaley cautions against making those mentioned in the files guilty by association.
Anybody who's listed in it here has not been charged with anything, and there's been no proof against them. So we have to be really careful about drawing conclusions about them.
Former President Bill Clinton among the high-profile names listed in these newly unsealed court documents because an alleged victim of Epstein sought to depose Clinton as part of her defamation lawsuit against Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell. Also in the documents, deposition from a witness who said she met Michael Jackson and magician David Copperfield during her time with Epstein. Southern border security update. The top Democrat and Republican negotiators in the U.S. Senate say the bill to stop illegal immigration in the House is not the only way. Tennessee Congressman Mark Green went live on WTN's The Drive with Brian Wilson yesterday as part of the 60-plus group of Republicans who went to Texas to see the crisis firsthand.
I understand immigration's got to get fixed, but Republicans fell for that years ago before I got into the Congress, and we're not going to do that again.
Congressman Green will chair the first impeachment hearing of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on Wednesday. Right now in Nashville, Metro Police want to hear from you about the license plate reader cameras. Public meetings have been scheduled for all 8 precincts for feedback on planning how the program will work. You can check with your precinct for time and place. Metro Police put out a statement saying the department looks forward to working with the community to develop a continuing license plate reader plan that will enhance safety throughout Davidson County. Channel 4 talked to a man with an important message if you want to avoid being the victim of auto theft, especially after parking to go shopping or now after New Year, to the gym.
Loose change, purses, IDs, credit cards, everything that you got out in the car, like take a little more time to put it up. They see it, they want it, they're going to come get it.
More than half of auto theft reports in Davidson County involve the owners leaving the keys inside. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Thank you, Ken. 5:33 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The Glock store in Nashville is where I bought my gun and I got my training. It is an amazing facility. Dan Mandis here. January is training month at McGill's Glock store and the incredible Shoot 270 indoor ranges. Listen, it's not enough to just own a gun. You've got to know how to use it safely, securely, and effectively. So do what I did and check out shoot270.com, the Glock store's exclusive and unique Shoot 270 indoor ranges. They don't have lanes because they just don't think they're the best way to train. They have massive rooms with professional firearms instructors. That is how I got my training. So when you reach out, mention Dan Mandis and WTN, and you're going to get a whole bunch of discounts. Number one, all range sessions are going to be half off when you mention my name. You're going to get free gun rentals with your paid range session, and they'll double whatever you paid for your session and apply it to a Shoot 270 range membership. This is a great value for my friends at the Glock store, and you've got to call them at shoot270.com. That's the website, shoot270.com. You can check out those incredible values of those memberships and those ranges. The world-famous Glock store in Nashville, minutes from the airport and worth the drive from anywhere. You can find them again at shoot270.com. 538 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Time for the gang of three amigos. Good morning, Johnny B.
Good morning.
Ken Weaver's here. Morning, Ken.
Good morning, boys. Yeah.
All right, so a couple of things. I think, you know what? I'm gonna probably ask this question of the listening audience.
All right.
How much do you care about the whole Epstein thing? Because, you know, I asked about that whole question regarding guilt by association and, you know, so on and so forth. And I think I got like 2 or 3 responses.
Yeah.
2 of the responses were, we don't care. Now, I would never program the radio station based on, you know, this Jeffrey Epstein thing. But, you know, I myself have been having, you know, my just give a crap on this story is just, it's not as high as on other stories. So I want to know from people, do you care about this story? Just give me a yes or no on the Epstein thing. How much do you care about this story? Because I was talking to somebody yesterday, and he was like, you know, the world is crumbling down around us, and the Democrats are trying, you know, 15 different ways to keep Donald Trump off of the ballot, and the borders are a mess, and this is just not on my priority list. Now, 8602, the first one out of the gate, thank you, 8602, says, I do care about molested children. So there's one.
Yes.
But I think that's the whole problem with people. I think when people say they don't care, it's not that they don't care. It's just I don't think they think that anything's going to come from it.
Yeah.
And that the most powerful are going to get away with it.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it is, and that's part of why my give a crap on this has been, you know, a little on the low scale, is because I don't think that anything's going to happen. And, you know, if Bill Clinton did do something wrong, as I said yesterday, he does need to be held accountable.
Well, we've already been told by, you know, Congressman Tim Burchett. You know, he told you.
Yep.
His people tell him that the flight logs, you know, the client lists, they've been washed.
Yep.
Long
been
ago.
lost.
They're gone.
If there's anything, I would say if there is anything that truly, truly proves that any very high official like a, you know, Bill Clinton did something wrong, I think it has been probably washed. And the thing is, if there's one guy who, you know, this story fits his personal profile, it is Bill Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. Seeing a lot of yeses, seeing a lot of no's. Definitely newsworthy if accurate, so I guess I'll continue to cover it.
Well, remember, Johnny just mentioned this off mic. You remember about a month ago, we were doing the story about the human trafficking ring that was busted. The U.S. Attorney's Office there in Massachusetts announced this thing was nationwide.
Yep.
They were trafficking in Asian women that appeared to be underage. And these were membership clubs.
Yep.
Where you gave over all of your information, name, and that sort of thing. I mean, that attorney was talking like there were going to be some bombshell reports coming, and it's been crickets ever since.
Now, you don't know. Maybe they're investigating it. Who knows?
Could be.
But I think from what I'm watching and what I'm looking at with the super text line is I think people, kind of like what I said yesterday, I don't think anybody's going to be held accountable. And I think that the people, as Johnny said, you know, a lot of these logs and Tim Burchett, a lot of these flight logs and so forth have all been washed or cleaned or, you know, redlined or whatever. So, yeah, I don't think there's going to be much to come of this. The Democrats are trying to make hay out of Donald Trump being on the list. But of all of these people, especially if you compare Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, Trump looks far, far more innocent than Bill Clinton does.
Well, he wasn't a president.
He wasn't a president at the time, sure. And that's number one. And number two, Bill Clinton is mentioned many, 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 many times.
Took many flights.
And
plus, was it known as the Lolita Express at that time? Because if it were, that should have told you plenty.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That is exactly right.
What kind of guy this was.
All right, now, Ken.
Yeah.
There was something that apparently happened when I was out for the week or so.
Okay.
Where, I guess, did you and JD have a thing?
Yeah, brother.
Yeah. The mayo and banana challenge.
Yeah.
So are you telling me that J.D. Hayworth enjoys mayo and banana together?
No, he does not.
Oh.
I told him that I would.
You would?
I have yet to try that, but I will try it. I don't even have to try it. I know I'll like it. Bananas and real mayonnaise sandwiches on that real fresh white bread.
Is gross.
No.
Oh,
I think
that's
Johnny
gonna be
would say
good.
you.
I am about to upchuck with the thought.
Goodness.
Yeah.
That'll be bad for Brother Mac when he comes in.
Banana.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Was there a game last night?
For me personally, that does sound actually disgusting.
I
I'm
think
curious
it's-
as to how that came up, though.
I can't remember how it did either. But I was supposed to report back to him the following morning, but I forgot that I was off that morning. So I did not report back.
And you didn't even call in and tell him.
I was asleep.
Well, let's see. 2719 says mayo and banana is delicious.
Oh, yes.
And 8245 says, yeah, that whole banana and mayonnaise thing was way too long. So let's just move on.
Oh, you don't want to relive that again?
I personally, I don't, because it sounds actually disgusting. But you know what? If you wanted to...
You know what I bet likes bananas and mayonnaise?
What's that?
Black bears.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of them coming to Middle Tennessee, according to wildlife regulators.
They're here already.
Whole
Really?
bunch of black bears already in Middle Tennessee, according to the TWRA, Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency.
Really?
5,000 to 6,000 black bears in Tennessee, but they're all coming to Middle Tennessee.
Well, why wouldn't they? Everybody else is.
And they're getting pushed here from all the development. Taking away their
Is that what it is? So
homes.
they're just making their way here.
Well, I hate to tell them, there's a lot of development here, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, remember, was it last year there was a black bear in Nashville?
Is this?
South Nashville.
Yeah, in 2023.
Well, so where, are they in, obviously, they're going to be out in the foresty treat areas.
Well, they've also been around like Antioch. There was one seen in Antioch.
Yeah, it was in June.
Yeah.
Seen in Antioch.
Yeah.
They'll probably get robbed in Antioch.
So they probably
Especially
would.
if they're carrying a banana and mayonnaise sandwich.
That's right.
Apparently, Matt Murphy tried the banana and mayonnaise sandwich.
Did he like
it?
He actually sampled them. I don't know. A super texter said that Murphy did indeed try it.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have to try it. I know I will like it, and I will. I will have some.
Okay.
I know I'm going to like it. I love mayonnaise.
So can I ask a question? So what do you do if a black bear chases you? Like, what are you supposed to do?
Well, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to at first make yourself look as big as you can.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard for me and you, Ken.
Yeah. I mean,
Raise up your hands.
yeah. But you're not supposed to go anywhere near a cub, which I think I remember. This is in East Tennessee. They had to take care. I can't say anything about it. Apparently, there was a cub in Tennessee, in East Tennessee, and tourists were trying to take pictures with it, and it did not end well.
People are so dumb.
They are dumb.
Unfortunately, for the mother, because the mother, takes care of the cubs.
Are you supposed to run from a bear?
Yeah. Well, you need to.
You can make yourself look big.
Make yourself look big,
but
the thing of it is try not to sneak up on them. What a wildlife regulator will tell you is, like, especially if you're hiking, maybe have jingle your keys. Some hikers actually wear little bells that make a sound while they're hiking to give a bear or another predator like that a heads up that you're coming, because apparently bears don't like to be surprised.
Okay.
Especially if they're mama bears with their cubs.
Yeah.
And please don't take selfies.
And don't try to pet them.
No.
Yeah. Or feed them.
No.
You guys ever, I talked about this before. Somehow on my, I think it's my Instagram, I follow an account where it's like all about animals. And one of the things that it shows, I've got to stop following this. You guys ever seen a Komodo dragon?
Yeah.
And how they eat goats?
Yes.
And I am now, I think we talked about this before, I'm now having nightmares about being eaten by a Komodo dragon. Because I find it just fascinating where these dragons just, you know, they're like big lizards and their tongue sticks out and stuff.
Yeah, they're big dinosaurs.
And they just walk up to these goats and just eat them like they're an appetizer.
Yes.
Like they're bananas with a mayonnaise on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I actually had a dream the other night that I was being chased by a Komodo dragon. It's kind of things I dream about.
Were you able to get away from it?
No. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, Dan, I'm going to give you something else to dream about, all right? Be a little bit better.
Please.
You know the Rolling Stones video, Angry.
Yes, I've watched it many times.
Yeah, a lot of people have. And a lot of people have commented on how pretty the actress is, Sydney Sweeney, who is the female in the video. Well, you now have some women's rights groups that are coming out, and they are saying that she's being objectified in the video because of her body. And
well, what she's doing, she's basically... Ken, have you seen the video?
Yeah, now I know what you're talking about, Brother Johnny.
She's
B.
basically in a car, and it's a convertible, and she's like writhing around the car as it drives down Ventura Boulevard.
Yeah.
She's dancing, and she's
kind of playing the music.
And she's you know, very well endowed.
Well, as she puts it, and this is Sydney herself, she told the Glamour UK, she said, I felt hot. She said, I picked my own outfit out of racks and racks of clothes. She said, I felt good in it. She said, I have a beautiful body. I'm celebrating that. Nobody coerced me into doing anything. She said, it was a fun video shoot. The Rolling Stones are iconic. And she said, I love being part of it.
Can I just ask, when did feminism become bullying pretty women who are proud of their bodies? And if they choose to, if the word is objectify, if they choose to objectify themselves, then what's the problem? You know what I think the problem is? The problem is these feminists, nobody wants to objectify them.
Oh, that's true.
And so they're like, they got to be like just these, I don't know. I mean, is it wrong to say these women who are ultra feminists are got to be the ones that nobody wants to objectify? So maybe there's a little bit of jealousy there. So they're going to come out against Sydney Sweeney, who she's using her body for her own career advantage.
Right.
What is the problem?
Right.
And let me tell you something, by the way, if men have, you know, really big biceps and stuff and, you know, it's suns out, guns out kind of a thing, well, men can do that. So why can't Sydney Sweeney do what she's doing?
Exactly. All she's doing is dancing. She's dancing to a very cool song. And
yeah.
I don't understand. I just can't. I can't.
You know
get
what? Good for Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with, you know, what she did on that video.
Well, you know, it's like I told my older sister. I told my older sister, she said, well, how old is the actress? And I told her who she was. And I said, she's about dating age for Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
So,
well,
you do have that.
You know, every summer in downtown Nashville, it's suns out, buns out.
Well, it is. That's the truth.
Right. That's the thing. What is the problem?
I mean, these girls running around with shorts pulled up to their chest.
Yes. With cowboy boots on.
Because that's how we all dress.
And cowboy hats.
Here in Nashville.
Or cowgirl hats.
Oh, the objectifying of women. So dumb.
And then if you put on a guitar case, because we all walk around like that in Nashville with cowboy hats on. And
sure.
Carrying our guitars.
Boots on.
Especially on Marble Rye over there across the street.
Well, I like how Sydney Sweeney just puts those people in her place.
Yes.
Yeah, he's just basically telling them to shut up.
Well, I like when she said, I felt hot. Well, okay. We celebrate that.
Well, and you know, I didn't realize that. And here's the crazy thing. So these modern feminists, right, who are taking time out to criticize Sydney Sweeney, right?
Right.
These are the same ones that have nothing to say about trans women or dudes being allowed to play female sports.
Or
they choose
Bill
to go
Clinton hitting on women and at times.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So they have nothing to say about those things, but they'll go after Sydney Sweeney. It is unbelievable. And you know what? Sadly, these days, it is not entirely shocking. It is 5:53 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. By the way, the Super Text line is open at 615-737-9986. Ken Weaver, what's coming up in the news?
Jeffrey Epstein files. More names that came up. Coming up at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. 5:54. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Listen, it is cold. It's going to get colder. Winter is here. And you need to protect your family by becoming a Beehive member from my friends at Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. They are going to ensure that you are running at peak efficiency for maximum comfort. If your heater does break down, by the way, Beehive members like me get front of the line service. So when hundreds of homes are without heat, you are going to get serviced first when you are a Beehive member. Now, becoming a Beehive member also means that you get 3 thorough maintenance services a year, including plumbing, plus no overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off of all repairs. For satisfaction guaranteed, call these folks. Tell them I told you to reach out. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. I've been a Beehive member for, I think, about 10 years now. 615-775-7833. 615-775-7833. BusyBeeHVAC.com.
6 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Previously sealed court documents pertaining to financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein starting to be released, revealing the names of powerful people who associated with Epstein. Here's Aaron Katursky.
There are names that have come up. I saw a reference to actress Cameron Diaz. I saw Al Gore, Tipper Gore. I saw a reference to Donald Trump. And none of that means anything. These were just people that lawyers wanted to ask witnesses about during deposition testimony because maybe they had been associated with Epstein or their names just simply came up during the course of the lawyers' investigations.
Yeah, when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested on the tarmac of an airport in New Jersey back in 2019, the feds simultaneously searched his mansion on the Upper East Side. They took photos and video. They took out a lot of items, and much has never been publicly revealed, so that may be the last place where the public could look to understand more about Epstein's crimes. Southern border security update. The top Democrat and Republican negotiator in the U.S. Senate say the bill to stop illegal immigration in the House is not the only way. Tennessee Congressman Mark Green, among the 60-plus Republican lawmakers who went to Texas yesterday to see the illegal immigration crisis firsthand. Green called WTN's The Drive with Brian Wilson, said President Biden refuses to do what is necessary for national security.
All he's got to do, if he wants to decrease the backlog, is stop letting people in, and it'll start going down.
Green will chair the first impeachment hearing of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on Wednesday. And right now in Tennessee, people are in shock after a car crashed into a home in Pulaski.
I heard a car coming down through here real fast. I guess it was doing 80, 90 miles an hour. I came out and I heard a thump. When I heard the thump, I looked up. The car was upside down on the roof of the car. And the pole was cut half in two.
Neighbors telling Channel 4 they saw 3 people taken by helicopter to hospitals. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, beaconcm.com. Here's Jim Ryan.
Investors have spent the first week of 2024 trying to recreate the year-end rally of 2023 without much luck. The Dow Jones Wednesday gave up 285 points and closed at 37,430. The S&P fell 0.8%. The Nasdaq gave up 1.2%, its fourth consecutive daily decline. The ADP Research Institute will release its monthly jobs survey this morning. It's expected to show that the private sector added 115,000 new positions in December. The Federal Reserve appears to be on board with trimming interest rates this year, writing in the minutes from last month's meeting that lower rates would be appropriate as long as inflation keeps cooling. The Fed's Open Market Committee meets next at the end of this month. Some relief for the flying public. Flight cancellations fell nationwide last year to their lowest in at least a decade. Out of more than 16 million flights in 2023, the Transportation Department says 1.2% were canceled.
All right, checking futures ahead of the opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures up 45, S&P up 4, NASDAQ up 14. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
For many of us, generators are becoming a must-have household appliance. From unpredictable weather to surprise outages, it's better to be safe than sorry. Generator Supercenter of Nashville offers fast and easy installations with 24/7 service and monitoring to all brands of generators and expert repairs done right. Our mission is to make owning a backup generator simple and easy. Visit your local store today or check us out online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville. We serve all Middle Tennessee.
Nashville's morning news with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
We talk news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6:07 Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on into your Thursday, January 4th, 2024. How you doing? Congressman Mark Green was down on the southern border. He had a great conversation with our own Brian Wilson. I've got some audio bites for you. I got to tell you, the left collectively, they're so full of crap, their eyes are brown. Remember when we used to say that in school? And I thought it was interesting because Jake Tapper, and he was interviewing Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. And it was so funny because Johnson was talking about, all the bad guys that are coming across the southern border. And we're talking about like 7 million people, right? Jake Tapper, in his infinite wisdom, says, well, they're not all possible terrorists. No crap, Sherlock. That's what Jake Tapper comes back with. They are so desperate. The people on the left and in the media, they are so desperate to excuse the president and the Democrats and their performance on the southern border. It is amazing to me. And so when Johnson is being interviewed by Jake Tapper, I will tell you, I thought that it was kind of funny because it was such a nonsensical interview. So he was on with Jake Tapper, and you've got House Speaker Johnson. He was asked, why is it that Republicans won't allow the White House their $14 billion to, quote, deal with the border? And this is what Mike Johnson said. Johnny, need some audio if I could, please.
This is a catastrophe down here. And what the White House is proposing is more money to process and allow more illegals into the country. We need to do the opposite of that. And this is, you don't need to take my word for it. Listen to the deputy chief of the U.S. Border Patrol who was with us last night, and he told us in his own words, he said, it's as if I'm at an open fire hydrant. I don't need more buckets to dump the water. He said, I need to turn the flow off. That's why we're here today, Jake. We had 64 House Republicans here representing 26 states and 1 U.S. territory, everybody from California to Maryland, Michigan to Florida, because every state in America is a border state right now. Yep. This catastrophe can come to an end if the Biden administration will do its job, and they've refused to do it. They're doing the opposite.
Hey, you remember this audio that triggered me yesterday when the president was asked about the southern border.
guys, do something. They ought to give me the money I need to protect the border.
Yeah, so that is Biden saying, if only the Republicans would give me the money that I need to deal with the southern border. And the Republicans, and I've got the audio, but the Republicans and Johnson, and I've been saying this for a long time, what the Democrats want the money for isn't to protect the border. It is simply to process more people into our country. Now, Jake Tapper pointing out that the White House also wants money for more Border Patrol agents and to counter the flow of fentanyl, which is true. I mean, that is true. That's what the White House says. But here's the deal. It sounds like what Biden is asking for is almost like a Band-Aid for a gaping wound that is our southern border. It's just not enough. There's not enough Border Patrol agents that we could put on the southern border that is going to protect the border. We need actual policy changes, not simply more bodies. And the other thing that I would say is that, okay, let's say the Republicans give up this $14 billion and so Biden can have, a few more border agents and so forth. But here's the thing. Those border agents, because Biden has done this, those border agents who are supposed to be there protecting the border, they can be reassigned like that. So I understand why the Republicans are really cynical about giving, Joe Biden, who executive ordered us into oblivion on the border, billions of dollars for, additional border agents and so forth when he could just reassign them to processing. Here's more from Mike Johnson.
7 million people have come into the country since Biden walked into the Oval Office. And that's a low estimate. Most people believe it may be twice that high. We have nearly 2 million gotaways that we know about, not to mention those who evaded capture. Over 300 known terrorists apprehended at the border trying to come in. We don't know how many evaded capture and detection. They're in the country, potentially setting up terrorist cells everywhere. Fentanyl is the #1 cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 49, flowing over the border like an open sewer. Human trafficking is the #1 business of the cartels here. Estimated, we were told today, Jake, one of the local sheriffs here said that they believe that the cartels are making $32 million a week on trafficking human beings into the U.S. That's over $1.5 billion a year.
Yeah, that was, again, Speaker Mike Johnson. And he ended up speaking again down on the border. That was an interview with Jake Tapper. He ended up later on talking about what was going on the border with 64 Republicans to talk about the destructive nature of Joe Biden's policies. Like we don't already know, of course. Some people are asking the question, and perhaps it's a fair question to ask, was this whole thing just a political stunt? Now, I will tell you that that's also what they say about Greg Abbott. And what Abbott does is he sends a lot of these illegals to some of these other states. Whether it is a stunt or not, it gets the conversation going. And look what's happened. Now you have all of these Democrat mayors out of Chicago and Denver and New York. And they're sort of, very delicately, but calling out the Biden administration. Here's more from Johnson on the border.
Under President Biden, America has laid out a welcome mat to illegal immigrants, smugglers, and cartels. He is responsible for the grave threat to our national security and our nation's sovereignty that these policies have created.
Right. I mean, he's right. And Mark Green was on with our own Brian Wilson yesterday on The Drive.
Well, on day one, they came in and did away with all of the Trump-era policies that were working. They did away with Remain in Mexico. They did away with it, and it's resulted in the crisis that we have. So they've done exactly the wrong thing. We've shown them that those policies that they have implemented, catch and release, have created an incentive and has caused the mass wave of people coming across. We've shown them that the drug cartels have used that in order to get fentanyl around, basically overwhelming the Border Patrol, causing Border Patrol to have to, leave the border wide open.
So I don't care if it was a stunt, this whole trip down to the southern border. They say, was this serious or was it a stunt? I don't care. Because we know that the Biden administration, they're trying to import votes. But, they've completely dropped the ball, perhaps purposefully. We'll have to wait and see ultimately what happens. But, these people are going to be granted amnesty, ultimately the right to vote. A lot of them will end up having babies here as well. And so this is just the ability of the Biden administration to import a new voting block, as I've said to you many, many, many times. I've got more audio from Mark Green, and it all comes down to policy, and it's all straight ahead at 6:15. Time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Thank you very much. At 6:16, as far as your weather goes, today partly sunny and a high of 41. On Friday, dry and a high of 46. On Saturday, rain and a high of 44. Should be clear by Sunday with, again, a high of 44. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News and Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Big production down on the southern border. And here's the thing. You folks, because you listen to Nashville's Morning News, you know what's happening on the southern border. It is a disgrace. And when we have an entire political party, the Democrats, who are selling out our country so that they can remain in power. That is obvious. And with Joe Biden sitting here saying, if I only had the billions of dollars the Republicans won't give me, I could secure the border. BS. There's simply no truth to that statement at all. And so one of the things that Congressman Mark Green commented on with The Drive with Brian Wilson yesterday is he did comment on the president with the audio that I just played for you a little bit ago, where he said, "Oh yeah, if the Republicans only gave me the money."
And that's why this whole budget request from Joe Biden for money for the border is ridiculous, because all they want to do is process more people into the country.
That's what I said.
So, no, I'm not giving Joe Biden any money unless there's policy changes. There have to be policy changes. Are there needs for money? I mean, in H.R. 2, we put more money in there for overtime for Border Patrol, to plus up the Border Patrol, but that won't fix anything if they're just processing more people into the country.
Correct. And as you process more people into the country, that throws out that welcome mat for more illegal immigration. Now, and I know some of you people probably get tired of hearing me say this, so I'm just going to bullet point this from here on forward. Remember what Joe Biden stopped on day one: building the wall, stopping or pausing deportations. He ended Remain in Mexico. That was a huge thing. And Green says that ending Remain in Mexico policy, that is the one big thing that drew a lot of illegal immigration to our country.
You would stop 70% of the flow if you just implement Remain in Mexico. If you simply implement Remain in Mexico and do detention by the law, the Immigration and Naturalization Act says exceptions to the policy are to be granted on a case-by-case basis. Everybody else gets detained. And if we detain people and fill up those ICE detention beds like they should be, then people will stop coming. Detention is deterrence. And that's why the law was written in a bipartisan fashion so many decades ago.
He was also asked about Alejandro Mayorkas. Now, Ken was reporting that Green, of course, as you know, chair of the House Homeland Security Committee, and they're going to start Alejandro Mayorkas impeachment proceedings next week, thank God. But this is an audio bite that Mayorkas, he said this a little while ago, and Brian played this for Congressman Mark Green.
That backlog is a powerful example of how broken our immigration system is and for how long it has been broken.
Yeah, what he's talking about is this backlog where there are, some 3 million people who are backlogged, and they're waiting for, their supposed meetings with, the immigration people. And some of these folks are getting appointments years away. 8 years away, if I remember that story from a couple of weeks ago. And so that's Mayorkas trying to, pass the buck and not take any responsibility. And, cringe Jean-Pierre has also said on many occasions, oh, well, the immigration system is broken. It was broken before we got here. It'll be broken after we leave. And, the Congressman Mark Green is calling BS on that.
All he's got to do, if he wants to decrease the backlog, is stop letting people in, and it'll start going down. Instead, the number is skyrocketing because he's basically opened the border.
Yep.
The flow is pouring across the border, and this backlog is just skyrocketing. All he's got to do is close the border, and we'll get it taken care of.
Ain't that hard. It's really not that difficult. The Democrats can sit here and they can talk on and on incessantly about the Republicans. And see, that's what I mean. When we talked about this last couple of days, where I've said, should the because it's a debate that is happening where you have the Republicans in the Senate, I guess, and you've got the Democrats clearly trying to work with Joe Biden because they know that this is a losing issue for the president. And so now the question is, should the Republicans play ball? Should the Republicans in the House play ball and basically give Biden a bailout so that the president can come out and say, see, I'm fixing the border. I convinced the Republicans to give me billions of dollars, and now we can get more Border Patrol agents and this, that, and the other. And that's the question. Should the Republicans bail out the president so that gives him a talking point heading into 2024? Because that this is all about politics. The president is absolutely underwater when it comes to the border. He's trying to fix that. Should the Republicans help him fix that? I say no. I'm just going to tell you. Well, then, Mandis, you're part of the problem. No, I'm not. You see, because I want a long-term solution to the southern border. And if the Republicans, give $14 billion or whatever it is to the president, all he's going to do is make some minimal changes and he'll have more border security to process the illegal aliens. But the bottom line is, we know that Joe Biden would have $14 billion to do whatever he wants with the southern border. And at the end of the day, he wants open borders. Better to allow the president to, hang himself on his poor policies going into the presidential election that's going to happen, of course, in November. And then if the president loses, if Donald Trump or whoever ends up in the Oval Office, they can make real substantial changes. One more audio bite, even though I'm running late. Sorry, Johnny. But what about the notion of the terrorists that are coming across our southern border? Oh, you're just being anti-Muslim.
9 people were brought here by an ISIS terrorist. They released them, let them into the country. And the FBI is now actively searching for those people inside our country as we speak. There was Becky, brought in by a known ISIS agent. So, and it was interesting, too, in that testimony, Brian, that the FBI director basically said he feared for his guys who had to go and do that job.
Yep.
That ought to wake us all up. Who knows who's here? And when the Border Patrol leaves the border to come in and process people, it's wide open.
We're not only just talking about, Muslims or folks from these African countries. We're also talking about people coming in from China. I mean, I could go on and on. I usually do, so I'm going to wrap it up here. It's a great interview by Brian, Congressman Mark Green, on the southern border. If you want to check out the entire interview, you can. It's at 997WTN.com at 6:23 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver, what's coming up in the news?
Epstein files revealed who is to be named. Border security update. Tennessee congressman indicating a showdown's coming between the House and Senate on immigration reform. And we've got some Nashville license plate reader camera news at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Did you guys hear Vivek Ramaswamy he obliterated the Washington Post. It is actually my favorite audio of the day.
They got Ramaslammied.
They did get Ramaslammied. Thank you, Ken. And it's coming up at 6:35 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I want to tell you about my friends at DT McCall's. Their gun safes right now are sales tax free. Hunting season does continue, so you're going to go hunting, but when you're home, you know those guns do need to be locked up in that tax-free gun safe from DT McCall's. Now, they are Tennessee's largest Liberty gun safe dealer, and they also, in addition to selling those gun safes sales tax-free, they also offer free delivery and setup as well. Now, other places are going to charge you $500 for delivery and setup, depending on size, but not DT McCall's. They deliver and they set up for free. And by the way, you can use that gun safe to keep anything safe: valuables, cash, jewelry, documents, wills, deeds, and car titles, whatever. Your most important valuables are safe from theft or fire with a gun safe from DT McCall's. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. Details at their website. It's dtmccalls.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones, actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies. It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right.
Ken Weaver calling you a national treasure.
Well, goodness.
Why is it I always get called like a POS, but you get called the national treasure? What's up with that?
Well, it's because my mom watches us every morning.
Is that what it is?
Thanks,
Your mom watches us every morning?
Yeah.
Well, your mom's going to be disappointed today because your camera's not working.
No, it is
I guess Ken's camera, for you folks watching on Super Talk TV, we got Johnny's camera working, but now Ken's is not.
So Argentina is going to be quite angry.
It's like whack-a-mole around here with all of the camera problems. Our fantastic engineering and IT department, and I do mean that, they're working on the problem as we speak.
Yeah, and that means I don't have to put a shirt on yet.
I wish you would, actually. That'd be...
Hey, look at this, Dan.
Boy, there are black bear in Tennessee.
Very good, Johnny. Very good.
That's my wrestling hair.
628, by the way. 1751. The Republicans need to hold their stance on illegal immigration. More money for border agents is not a fix. Agents will be fired as a cost saving eventually. Build a wall and shut down access. That's what I keep saying. That's what that whole entire monologue was about. You know, give Joe Biden $14 billion. One of the things Mark Green said is that, you know, we've been fooled before. The Republican Party has been fooled before. And as he said, not on my watch. And so we'll continue to watch what happens on the border. The Senate, again, they're working with Joe Biden to try and figure out some sort of a compromise. But, you know, some people say, well, we have all of this money to send to Israel and Ukraine. Why can't we send the money to fix the southern border? The point, folks, is that the southern border is not going to be fixed when the Biden administration is in power. So that's the point. You give them $14 billion, it's a Band-Aid on a massive gaping bullet wound. It's simply not going to work. We need a fundamental change in policy. And so when I say let Joe Biden hang by the, stupidity of his policy, well, that's exactly what I mean. Do not engage in any kind of a compromise. Do not give him the $14 billion because, quite frankly, the only reason he's doing this now is because it is an election year and he is not doing well in the polling. And this is all about importing a brand new voting block. So if you want to chime in, 615-737-9986. Got a lot more straight ahead. The Washington Post is Ramaslammied, and I cannot wait to play you the audio. It is coming up next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.30 on the dot this Thursday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes, but right now, previously sealed court documents pertaining to financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein are in the public domain, revealing the names of powerful people who associated with Epstein. Epstein was accused of abusing young girls and women for years until he allegedly took his own life in jail in 2019 while awaiting sex trafficking charges. Aaron Katersky reports.
Some of the names are people that may have just worked for Jeffrey Epstein and may have seen something or heard something and lawyers wanted to talk to them. Some may be additional victims that lawyers at the time wanted to talk to. Some may be people who flew on Epstein's private plane, people like former President Bill Clinton, who has never been accused of any wrongdoing as part of his association with Jeffrey Epstein.
And when Epstein was arrested on the tarmac of an airport in New Jersey back in 2019, the feds simultaneously searched his mansion on the Upper East Side, and they took photos and video, a lot of items, much that has never been publicly revealed. Southern border security update. Tennessee Congressman Mark Green indicates a showdown's coming between the House and Senate when it comes to immigration reform.
We will get border security before we do anything on immigration.
Green was speaking from the border in Texas to WTN's The Drive with Brian Wilson. He said the president can but refuses to shut down the border right now. Green will chair the first impeachment hearing of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on Wednesday of next week. Right now in Nashville, Metro Police want to hear from you about the license plate reader cameras. Public meetings have been scheduled for all 8 precincts for feedback on planning how this program's going to work. Check with your precinct for time and place. And Channel 4 talked to a man with an important message if you want to avoid being the victim of a crime, especially after parking to go shopping or to the gym.
Loose change, purses, IDs, credit cards, everything that you got out in the car, like take a little more time to put it up. They see it, they want it, they're going to come get it.
Yeah, more than half of auto theft reports in Davidson County involve the owners of leaving the keys inside. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Thank you, Ken. It's 6:32. I want to tell you about my friends at Window Nation. Winter is here, if you haven't noticed. It's really cold, and if you've had enough of the cold drafts blowing through your old windows, bundling up in layers of clothes and blankets, and hearing your heat turn on for the 5th time this hour, it is time to talk to the pros at Window Nation. Now, these are the folks that I turn to put windows in my basement studio. They look great. They work great. Now, replacing those old windows with quality, energy-efficient ones from Window Nation is easier and more affordable than you might think. And right now, through the end of the month, replace the windows in your home and pay no interest for 5 years. That is a great deal. You get great windows at a great price. And on top of all of that, Window Nation is also giving you 50% off all window styles. Don't wait, friends. With 0 interest for 5 years, why not give Window Nation a look? As always, tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. Let us show you all the options to fit your needs and your budget from Window Nation. Call them 866-90-NATION, 866-90-NATION. That phone number, 866-90-NATION, windownation.com. .35, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends, along with Johnny B, Ken Weaver, Dan Mandis here. It is a very cold January 4th of 2024. Good morning to you. Appreciate you listening. So there's a lot to talk about. I do want to get to this audio. A Washington Post reporter asked Vivek Ramaswamy about whether or not he condemns white supremacy. Now, the reason why they ask him this question, and you folks know how this works, right? Because they tried to do this with Black Lives Matter as well, is that if you don't answer exactly the right way, then they are going to condemn you as someone who is a white supremacist if you don't answer with the exact vernacular that you are expected to answer. So this is how Vivek Ramaswamy answered the Washington Post reporter demanding to know if he condemns white supremacy. Listen.
Not treating it. I'm not.
Hold on. After that big setup, stand by, and here we go. Vivek Ramaswamy.
I'm not going to recite some catechism for you. I'm against vicious racial discrimination in this country. So I'm not pledging allegiance to your new religion of modern wokeism, which absolutely fits the test. I'm not going to bend the knee to your religion. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to bend the knee to mine, and I'm not going to bend the knee to yours. But do I condemn vicious racial discrimination? Yes, I do. Am I going to play your silly game of gotcha? No, I'm not. And frankly, this is why people have lost trust. And I know you're going to go print the headline tomorrow. I already know this. We already know how your game works. Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to condemn white supremacy because you asked a stupid question. The reality is, I condemn vicious racial discrimination in this country, but the kind of vicious and systematic racial discrimination we see today is discrimination on the basis of race in a very different direction. Mm-hmm. You want to know what the best way is to end discrimination on the basis of race? Stop discriminating on the basis of race. Boom. Do that, and we're going to move this country forward. And I don't care whether you're black or white or brown or anything in between. That's how we're going to unite this country. You people have been responsible for dividing this country to a breaking point, creating a projection of national division. I meet people from the south side of Chicago to meetings like this one of every shade of melanin, multiple, from man to woman, doesn't make a difference, who are hungry for reviving unity in this country. And you, with your catechism that you try to get to politicians to whatever fake headline you're going to print on the basis of this conversation tomorrow, that's what's dividing this country to a breaking point. Shame on you. Look people in the eye and tell them what you've actually failed to tell them for the last 5 years. Own the accountability for your own failures as the media. That's how we rebuild trust in this country. And until then, I don't have a lot of patience to play the games.
There you go, golf clap. See, that gets more of a golf clap from me, because I think that is a great piece. How long was that? Like a minute 30 or something. But you know what? He speaks the truth. And when Vivek Ramaswamy talks about the media, and he talks about how they stoke division in this country by constantly race baiting, all you have to do is look at the case of Claudine Gay. Because the reaction to her, we touched on this a little bit yesterday, the reaction to her, some people are saying she was, forced to resign by a bunch of conservatives. No, she was not forced to resign by a bunch of conservatives. She was forced to resign because she plagiarized. And those plagiarism accusations have been around for a long time, long before Elise Stefanik asked her about the anti-Semitism on the Harvard campus. You have a lot of these news organizations that were literally saying that this was a conservative, a Republican attack on Claudine Gay because we're conservative and she's black. And it was all nothing but racism. I mean, this is the headline from the Associated Press. The Associated Press is forced into humiliating U-turn on ousted Harvard president Claudine Gay. They wrote an article, and they were talking about this sensational headline that claimed that academic crimes of plagiarism was a new conservative weapon. I would turn this around, and I would say, so is it okay if you are a liberal, if you are a progressive, is plagiarism suddenly okay with the Democrats? Because if it is a conservative weapon, which it's not, it's about right versus wrong. But if it's a conservative weapon to accuse people of plagiarism, okay, well then if she actually did plagiarize, and she did plagiarize Dr. Carol Swain for one, and many others as well, well then what's the problem? All the conservatives are doing is pointing out the plagiarism. So that's not a conservative weapon. We find out more and more, and by the way, I'll answer my own question. Of course, plagiarism is okay, with the Democrats because their own president, Joe Biden, has been guilty of plagiarism. That's how his first run for the Oval Office ended, was because he was caught plagiarizing. And so for the Democrats, if you're a Democrat, what the heck? I'm not going to curse. It's one of my New Year's resolutions, no more cursing on the radio. So why exactly is it, or what exactly is it that the Democrats stand for? I mean, it all comes down to being untruthful, doesn't it? So one of the biggest lies right now, the border was secure. We all remember that. And now Claudine Gay, she is a victim of racism and the attacks of plagiarism. That's nothing but a conservative weapon. No, she plagiarized. And so I guess when it all comes right down to it, if you're the Associated Press or if you're some of these other organizations, then the only way that you can defend yourself against the truth, which is what Republicans are bringing forward, is to claim racism. And Republicans, we've been talking about this for how long, folks? How long have we been talking about this? I just played you that great audio from Vivek Ramaswamy basically telling the Washington Post to stick it. And by the way, one of the things that he said, Washington Post is not worth my money because they're behind a paywall. So I would be interested to know, because remember in that audio, one of the things that he said was that the Washington Post would print the headline, Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to condemn white supremacism. I'm wondering if that is the actual headline that the Washington Post printed. If you see it, please send it to me on the super text line at 615-737-9986. But just to prove to you how absolutely insane the coverage of Claudine Gay has become, listen to this montage. This was on Fox News last night.
Until she resigned, is now the latest.
This is part of what they said.
What happened to Claudine Gay was mob pressure.
There is this sort of open war on Black progress, Black history. Claudine Gay, the president of Harvard University, at least up until she resigned, is now the latest casualty of that.
There very much is a racial component. I don't think it's fair to say all of her critics were racist, but certainly a few of them were.
It looks as though she was targeted. The fact that she's a Black woman and the first person who is a Black American to lead Harvard only added to their thirst to dethrone her.
Wow. You hear all that? I mean, did she or did she not plagiarize? It is clear that she did. I mean, if you look at the passages that she plagiarized, and it was like day after day after day, these accusations of plagiarism. And if you look at the passages that she plagiarized, it is clear that is what she did. And other people will point out that this is a process, choosing and the vetting of a Harvard president is something that sometimes, I guess, takes years. And she was ushered right in. And one has to ask the question as to why. Is it because she checked some boxes? She fit some category that everybody was trying to usher in a Black president of Harvard because they are absolutely mired in wokeness. And of course, you have the usual race baiters. You had Joy Reid in there and Jake Tapper and some of these other folks. And I guess the question that I would have to ask is, did she plagiarize or not? Yes, she did. And by the way, she still has her $800,000 or a $800,000 a year job at Harvard. You think that would happen if it was a white male? No. They're saying she is the first woman to lose her job and that first Black woman to get this kind of a position with Harvard, and the Republicans wanted nothing more than to simply take her down. I don't believe myself. I don't believe that's the case. And by the way, there were a whole bunch of students at Harvard who were saying that if we did what she did, we would be penalized. So she'd already lost the faith. Even before all of this started, she'd already lost the faith of a lot of the students at Harvard. It is 6:46. Time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Partly sunny today, a high of 41. Friday, dry and a high of 46. On Saturday, rain and a high of 44. Clear by Sunday, but still a high of 44. And 33 degrees now, Johnny, at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I played you audio of Vivek Ramaswamy talking about how the media, they're just a whole bunch of, clearly progressives and Democrats who do nothing but race bait in this country. And Ramaswamy speaks the actual and absolute truth. We segued into the ouster of Claudine Gay, where she basically was forced to resign from her lofty position as president of Harvard because she clearly plagiarized. The Associated Press, and by the way, many others, I just played you the audio, accusing Republicans of using this plagiarism accusation as a new conservative weapon, when the reality is that she was simply caught plagiarizing. And so to say that this was some sort of racist attack is silly, because remember that the UPenn president, she was white, and she was the first one to lose her job in all of this. So it has nothing to do with race. It doesn't have anything to do with gender, in my opinion. It has to do with the fact that they went in front of Congress and basically tried to whitewash their clear anti-Semitism on their campuses. And even the New York Times and a lot of these other places giving her a platform, not surprising, to call Republicans racist for her downfall. I mean, there's this story from Fox News, and, gotta love the headline. Disgraced former Harvard president pens New York Times op-ed attacking racial campaign against her. It's like the plagiarism accusations, they simply don't exist in the world of progressive Democrats. I'm not going to bore you with all the details of what she had to say because, y'all know what she wrote. You've been listening to WTN. We've all been talking about this. The guest essay, titled "What Just Happened at Harvard is Bigger Than Me," explained that the attempts to oust her since her congressional testimony were not efforts against her, but against the institution of education itself. She says, "As I depart, I must offer a few words of warning. The campaign against me was about more than one university and one leader. I will submit that it was about more than one accusations of clear plagiarism." Now, what she says, "This is merely a single skirmish in a broader war to unravel public faith in pillars of American society," obviously talking about higher education. "Campaigns of this kind often start with attacks on education and expertise because these are the tools that best equip communities to see through propaganda. And such campaigns don't end there," Gay wrote on Wednesday. The propaganda is actually coming from the universities, and oftentimes the propaganda comes from the universities into the mainstream media, like the New York Times and the Washington Post and the networks as well. That's where they all come from. And then, she talks about racism and all this kind of stuff. It's all just a bunch of BS. And listen, she can say what she wants to say, but I do love how you have the Associated Press and others now realizing that they are wrong to say that this is some sort of a new conservative weapon. By the way, do I have time to do this? Did you see who the new director of Star Wars is? Did you see this? Her name is, I'm going to try this, Sharmita Bachanoy. And you know who she is? She is somebody who was, sounds like anti-man. You know what her mantra is? Sharmita Bachanoy, the new director of the Star Wars movie, that she likes to make men feel uncomfortable. I kid you not, that's what she says. Here's Matt Walsh over at the Daily Wire put this out when she was announced as the new director for Star Wars. This is her at some sort of women's symposium.
You know, I'm very thrilled about the project because I think what we are about to create is something very special. And we're in 2024 now. And I think it's about time that we had a woman come forward to shape the story in a galaxy far, far away.
All right. So,
yeah, well, I'm out.
She is all about gender. And,
Yeah.
and by the way, and I'm going to get
that
into,
has nothing to do with creativity
well, neither does,
or advancing the story.
So it's Darth Vader with breasts.
I'm going to tell you that if you look at her resume, it's a whole bunch of documentaries about, gender and stuff. It has nothing to do with live action, series like, like a Star Wars movie. This is what she said at that symposium.
I like to make men uncomfortable. I enjoy making men uncomfortable.
Can you imagine, by the way, and I'm going to get to the rest of the audio bite in the 7 o'clock hour, but can you imagine if a man got up on a stage and said that he enjoyed making women feel uncomfortable? Can you imagine that in today's day and age?
Women feel uncomfortable. I just do.
What a moron.
Yeah.
It is
I'm
unbelievable.
not even, that pisses me off.
Well, what happened to entertainment? That's what it is. It's not
Exactly.
making a statement.
Yeah, it's about entertaining. It's not about activism. Man, see, that's what I think's happening to this Marvel Universe, too. Now
Well,
that,
Marvel Universe, Ken, it's great that you mentioned that because Marvel Universe is crap in the bed. Nobody's going to see those movies. Disney has had one failure after another. And oftentimes it's based on this wokeism. And so if you look at this woman's resume, it's all about, and by the way, she has won multiple Emmys and a couple of Oscars for documentaries about gender and how women have been oppressed in Pakistan and so forth, which, I mean, I'm not going to say she's not a very gifted documentarian, but her experience has nothing to do with the live-action movie like Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly dumb.
As a fan of the franchise, that just...
I am a huge fan
really
of the
disappointing.
franchise.
It is disappointing.
Really disappointing.
Well, J.J. Abrams, I mean, I think he and the other folks that have been directing these movies did great jobs. And then she comes in now and, she wants to make a whole bunch of men feel uncomfortable. Okay, well, you know what? You made a whole bunch of men. Because, Ken, I'm online looking at all these message boards and so forth. And as far as I can tell, millions of men are feeling the exact same way. Well, men may now feel uncomfortable about going to see any movie that she creates because it more than likely will be all about, gender and the message that she is trying to put forward and not about the saga of Star Wars. And it's sad.
Yeah.
6:55. Ken, what's coming up in the news?
Well, we've got more on the Epstein files revealing names. We got southern border security updates. Tennessee Congressman Mark Green and part of his report from Texas. Rachel Scott has a back and forth between a voter and Ron DeSantis. And people in Middle Tennessee are in shock to find a car slamming into a home. These stories and more at 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. 6:55. Stoltzco. Business is booming at Stoltzco as we head into January in 2024. The question is why? It's because they build great pole barns, and more Tennesseans are figuring that out. Now, if you don't know what a pole barn is, I beg of you, because there's things I like to look at on the internet. And Stoltzco's website is one of them because I've always toyed with the idea of building a pole barn. I don't have the space. But I'm telling you, if you have space on your property for one of these pole barns, check them out at their website. It is stoltzco.com, STOLTZCO, stoltzco.com. You can also find them on Instagram or Facebook. If you've got room on your property, seriously think about it. It can be a classic tool and work barn. It can be a garage. It can be a place to live. A pole barn is practical, efficient, and flexible. So call them at 615-622-5992. Please tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out for Stoltzco, where quality workmanship and great customer service is affordable. 615-622-5992.
For many of us, generators are becoming a must-have household appliance. From unpredictable weather to surprise outages, it's better to be safe than sorry. Generator Supercenter of Nashville offers fast and easy installations with 24/7 service and monitoring to all brands of generators and expert repairs done right. Our mission is to make owning a backup generator simple and easy. Visit your local store today or check us out online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville. We serve all Middle Tennessee.
Seven o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. Hundreds of sealed court filings pertaining to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, now public record. Here's Aaron Katursky on a former president's name in the first round of those documents released.
We know that former President Bill Clinton has been publicly associated with Epstein before. We knew that the lawyers wanted to depose Clinton as part of a lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's former paramour. But now we know the reason, because in these documents it says Clinton's a key person who can provide information about his close relationship with the defendant, Maxwell, and with Jeffrey Epstein. We never knew why Clinton's deposition was sought. Now we do.
Yeah, so some of the other names that have come up, like the actress Cameron Diaz, Al Gore, Tipper Gore, a reference to Donald Trump. But anyone who's listed in the documents has not been charged with anything. Southern border security update. Tennessee Congressman Mark Green says President Biden can forget about immigration reform before the border is secure.
Before my committee the other day, our committee the other day, that with the border wide open and a war in Israel, Hamas can...
No.